I'm here to join my colleagues in objecting to President Trump's fake energy emergency, which is part of the Trump continuing strategy to hurt families and help billionaires. In this case, the fossil fuel billionaires who put at least $100 million into getting him elected, probably a good deal more because so much of the money was dark money, we don't know, but there's every reason to believe that it was multiple hundreds of millions of dollars spent to get him elected, and it's payback time for the big donors and tough bounce to the families whose bills are going to go up as a result. How are families' bills going to go up? Well, for starters, renewables are less expensive than fossil fuel. And when you add them to the mix, the grid runs on a queue, and it takes the cheapest sources and puts them in the line. And as you demand more and more electricity, you finally get to the more expensive energy sources. And inexpensive renewables coming in drives out the expensive fossil fuel from the top, and it lowers energy costs overall. So when you stop doing that, the most expensive plants have to come back online, and that will raise utility bills. But most importantly to Trump, profits for fossil fuel billionaires. We make ourselves with this more vulnerable to the OPEC fossil fuel cartel, the oil and gas cartel. They raise prices by manipulating international markets. The American oil and gas companies follow up, even if they don't need to make that much money. They will follow the OPEC prices. As a result, they have declared the biggest profits in the history of humankind at the expense of American families, both at the fuel pump and at home and on their electric bills. Doesn't matter to this administration. It's a win for the fossil fuel billionaires who paid good money to get this administration in, and families will be hurt to help the fossil fuel billionaires. Another one is LNG export. What happens in the liquefied natural gas market when you take our natural gas, liquefy it, send it offshore someplace else? It doesn't go into the pipelines here in America. It pinches the supply available to Americans, which raises prices for Americans, unless you want to repeal the economic laws of supply and demand. So over and over and over again, these pro-fossil fuel mega donor policies hurt American families, raise family electric utility bills, and provide huge benefits back to the big donors who spent good money to get them into office. Who gets hit the most when you attack solar and attack wind power? Well, here are the top solar states by installed capacity. You start with California, obviously, it's the 5th biggest economy in the world, but the next 4 are Texas, Florida, North Carolina, and Arizona. There's a lot of red voters in those states who are going to pay the price of this bad policy. You look over to wind, top state, Texas. Next, Iowa. Next, Oklahoma. Next, Kansas. Again, red states will pay the price for this donor-oriented policy. The Trump administration doesn't even concede that solar and wind power are energy. When they use the word energy, they only mean fossil and nuclear. They have literally defined solar and wind out of the energy mix by process of vocabulary magic. So we're headed for a bad place, and consumers are going to pay, all to make big fossil fuel barons even richer than they are. And the shame here is that there actually is an emergency out there. There actually is an energy emergency out there. And the energy emergency is happening because fossil fuel emissions are changing the weather and the natural systems of the earth so that risk of weather disasters, whether it's wildfire or flooding, is getting so bad that property insurers can't keep up. So we are having a crisis in property insurance markets. It is fully developed in Florida. California is not far behind. And what the chief economist for our mortgage giant Freddie Mac has warned of is that the property insurance crisis morphs into a mortgage crisis, because if you can't get property insurance on a property, guess what else you can't get on that property? You can't get a mortgage on it. And the mortgage crisis devolves into a property values crash, because if you can't find buyers because nobody can get a mortgage on that property, your property value just collapsed. And then that morphs into a nationwide economic crash on the scale of 2008. That's what they said just about coastal property values. Now we've got the wildfire risk coming along side by side, the evil sibling. So is there an emergency? Yes, it is coming on. And it's coming on soon enough that the Fed chair, in testimony just over a week ago here in the Senate, said, after a decade goes by, there will be regions of the United States of America where you can't even get a mortgage any longer. What's that going to do to property values and people's homes? And by the way, if that's the case for 10 years out, markets are going to start to move sooner. So this is a problem that is on us now. We have a real emergency coming. It is going to clobber us economically. Our friends on the Republican side don't want to listen to us because of all the fossil fuel money that goes into their party. The president doesn't want to listen to it because he got paid so many hundreds of millions of dollars in political funds to get himself elected. But nature's rules can't be repealed by man. This is coming on. We ought to be prepared for it. With that, I yield.